I suppose
Most of us are
lonely
in this
big world, but we
must fall tremendously
in love.
to find it out.
Hi, my name is Amber Rose McNeill, and my film is I Love You Very Much, Redux. It is a micro short. It's just over 90 seconds, and it is a mashup of two of my previous experimental feminist documentaries. And the overall theme is about the way that we view violence as a society and within heteronormative relationships.
Great. Thank you for doing this today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
How many years have you had a film in our festival? I kind of lost count. 3 or 4?
I think it's 4. Yeah.
4 years straight, huh?
I think so. The first year was when it was online, but you did the awards as an event.
Yeah.
And I think that was was that 2021 maybe? Or was it 2020?
Yeah, because 2020, we didn't really do anything new because of the pandemic. We just did a best of.
Yeah, so yeah, every year since 2021. Thank you for having me every year.
No problem. I enjoy your work.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about your film.
I'd love to.
It says it takes an approach to the violence that women, femmes, and queer people endure. You use a lot of not necessarily found footage, but interviews you find on the internet and clips from films to get the point across, right?
Yeah, I use archival footage, which in this case is predominantly interviews with violent offenders, like serial killers, family annihilators, like pretty grim archival prison interviews and like court legal interviews. And also I use a lot of clips from like mainstream cinema as well. Because I feel like I definitely do not take the stance that violence in media causes violence in society. I think it's rather the other way around, that like what happens in cinema, what is portrayed in cinema is really a mirror and a representation and expression of like what we're going through in our actual lives.
You are the
Object of my desires.
the
Number one,
earthly
reason
For my existence.
This film, I Love You Very Much, Redux, is like a mashup basically of two of my films. One is Normal Porn for Normal People, which has screened with this festival in a previous year, and also my senior thesis film, which was I Love You Very Much, which is where the serial killers reading love letters comes from. Yeah, that footage doesn't exist. I was just, as I was kind of in my final months of my BFA, I was having a very depressed weekend. I was in bed, I was not feeling good about a boy, and I wanted to make something. And when I deal with chronic health issues on top of the stress of whatever I'm doing at the time, so I often go to like I'm very strong at editing. It doesn't take that much energy for me to edit, so I was like, what can I make in the form of like found footage? What can I do with archival stuff? And I don't know how the idea hit me, but I was like, what if like serial killers were reading these beautiful like famous love letters? So I decided like I'm good with an edit, like let's create that. So yeah, that footage doesn't exist outside of like I Love You Very Much and I Love You Very Much Redux, because I went through painstakingly and found either singular words or collections of words in the transcripts of these interviews, and then cut them together so that I created the serial killers and violent offenders reading famous love letters.
I do like how you edit. Most of the films that we've shown of your work, they're similar in the vein of technique in the editing of the footage, finding the contrast visually to what's said and all that.
You are my
only
love to have
need
completely in your power.
and that's not the question here. the question and the issue is.
Thank you. I'm not sure if I've talked about it in a previous interview with you, but I created my own editing style that I call choreographical editing, which is, it involves movement and sound. So sometimes it's like a match cut of the action on screen. Often I'm editing like on beat or on lyrics, sometimes off beat. Yeah, so it's kind of my own flavor of editing that I've really kind of sunk into, I guess, and I really enjoy. I think it's quite punchy, particularly when the subject matter is like looking at violence and social commentary and things like that. I think it works quite well and kind of like packs a bit of a punch, no pun intended, for the audience to kind of like think about things, not just when they're watching the film, and particularly for like a 90-second film, like leave them pondering things afterwards, which is like one of my aims with this type of filmmaking.
You have a BFA in film and educational background in psychology, criminology, yes, speech and language. You have that background and you became a filmmaker.
Yeah. So yes, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts in film, video animation and new genres. I also have an associate's degree in film production. But yeah, before I kind of finalized my degree path, I studied a lot of different things within like Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Arts. I started with speech pathology, which is how kind of like language comes in. I did 3 years of a speech pathology degree in Australia, moved to the US. I'd already switched to psychology in Australia, continued with psychology. Forensic and abnormal psychology had always been an interest of mine. So kind of like formalizing that with university study was great, but I was living in LA and I was like, I can study psychology anywhere and at any time. There's kind of like no limits to that. Whereas like working in film, there is sort of, particularly in the industry in LA, you know, it's better if you're younger, it's better if you're like while you're living in LA. So that's what caused the switch. But my dad had worked in film and TV all my life. It was kind of like set dressing, and being a design assistant was kind of like one of the first things that I did out of high school. So it felt like coming back home, but I feel like all the skills that I've picked up along the way have really helped make me a better filmmaker and make it easier for me to define what I'm trying to say and how I want to express it, particularly when it comes to these sort of like experimental documentaries that are using archival footage, if that makes any sense. I've kind of like got everything in there. It's just a matter of like, what do I want to say and how do I want to say it?
So now you're teaching.
Yeah, I'm about to start mid to late August. I am one of 2 new graduate teaching assistants at the University of Milwaukee. So I will be studying my MA in gender studies while also teaching at the same time, which is a really exciting change for me. It doesn't necessarily feel like a change because I feel like I talk so much or not use gender, but gender is like a very central element of my filmmaking and has been since I started making films, no matter what kind of films they are. So yeah, although it's kind of like a change and something new, it also feels kind of like it slots in very well to things that I've already been doing, which I think is probably one of the reasons that they wanted to hire me, because I'm a filmmaker. And I've, you know, been working within film and cinema in terms of like gender and challenging norms and all that kind of stuff since 2017. So I think that's hopefully gonna yeah, bring something a little bit different to the department. And I'm really excited to like share my perspective and teach some classes.
So thank you again for doing this and sending your film.
Thank you so much for having me.